Hey, how are you? I'm Slice of Otaku, and with this video, I want to take the time to talk about the recent Steven Universe leaks that utterly corrupted the fandom. And don't worry, this video is spoiler free as far as leaks go. I just really want to have this conversation now that my thoughts are more so collected. That, and I don't want the next few videos to be littered with questions on the subject. So for those of you who don't know, the other day on the official Cartoon Network YouTube channel, a podcast video revolving around the behind the scenes development of cartoons was uploaded. Now, this podcast didn't solely focus on Steven Universe, but certain clips featured in it were from unreleased Steven Universe episodes. And now technically, each clip could serve to be huge spoilers since their contents don't seem applicable to the current events of the show, but really since we lack proper context, they're not so bad, and if anything, they're just pretty cool. But one of the clips involved is the reason for this whole catastrophe. By using the simplest level of deductive reasoning, most people could figure out the necessary steps the story would need to undergo to reach this inevitable depiction. Now certainly, because the progression towards each individual step on the way to this cumulative point stands to be a bit ambiguous, there is still plenty to be speculated, as there always has been. So that's not really the issue. If anything, what's really troubling about this is that it creates a sort of framework for our contemplation, which admittedly may sound like a counterintuitive statement considering such a thing may serve to keep our theories more so in line with reality, but the problem is fun. Frankly, I don't really care if my theories and predictions are right or wrong. What's truly enjoyable for me is being creative alongside all of you, picking apart various details both minute and substantial, and weaving them together to create a plausible possibility. Whether or not they come to fruition is pretty much irrelevant. Sure, it's nice when you get something correct, but I don't really get caught up on that. It's more so on to the next contemplation, then the next, and so on. But by telling me where we end up several months before we're anywhere near that point is the placement of an unnecessary shackle on our creativity and by extension, a ton of fun. As far as I'm concerned, Steven Universe as a whole is far from being in a critical state because of this. Now, of course there are droves of people claiming this to be the straw that broke the camel's back for them, and they're now done with the series, but I really don't feel that in the slightest here, and trust me, I'll be the first person to voice my complaints regarding the show, unapologetically. But to me, this is one of those times where the show isn't at fault at all. And yeah, if I'm being honest, I wasn't really feeling what I saw, but still, because we lack information surrounding this point in time, I'd rather maintain a stance of neutrality towards it. And yeah, I'll roast it or whatever, but I pretty much do that with anything anyway, so yeah. If anything, the true fault lies with Cartoon Network, and as such, my frustration and disappointment have very much been aimed towards them. Now, I know that ENJQ said that this mishap doesn't reflect the company as a whole, which I agree with, but I also don't think that they should be totally absolved from scrutiny. And with that, Ian actually wrote a string of tweets on the subject that actually provided us with some further insight into the situation, the sort of transparency that is rather praiseworthy all things considered. But unfortunately, with the exception of those in defense of Cartoon Network, they've all been deleted, but I'll have them on screen if you want to read them. But yeah, something like this, whether it be a careless mishap caused by a jerk or not, should have been stopped in its tracks at some point or another before being made available to the public. When your company creates content tailored towards children, you should by default have eyes on what goes out. This is the very same mess Cartoon Network found themselves in with the initial publication run of the Steven Universe Art and Origins book. This is less of a failure on an individual's part, and more so the failure of many. And honestly, issues like these transcend even beyond just a single series. The network constantly leaving viewers as well as creators in the dark have largely attributed to many past issues, and will likely hinder many highly anticipated shows to come, like Infinity Train, which leaves the future in a very troubling state. And I feel like I may need to be more specific when I say Cartoon Network, because it's not as if I'm referring to a machine like the YouTube algorithm. This is me complaining about direction and current affairs, and by no means a reference to the actual people doing their jobs, because everyone I have ever met who is in affiliation with the network has been great. And so I just want to emphasize that there is a difference, because a lot of time I see people online calling out specific employees when they have no idea what goes on behind the scenes and who is actually responsible for what they find fault in. Which I guess is relatable because it's something that happens to a lot of us who make YouTube content as well. Some people just generally harbor ill will towards content creators and blame us for their issues at the drop of a hat, even when there is no probable cause. So yeah, let's just direct our frustrations at the conglomerate and less at specific people. But at the same time, Cartoon Network Studios is doing just fine. As far as we know, it's the main body that's to blame for these problems. And I don't know, it just seems like in recent years, animosity towards the network at large has only grown, while they've taken very few steps to defuse their situation. And I mean, I'm not gonna pretend to be carrying a pitchfork towards everything they do like a lot of people on this platform tend to do with the likes of Teen Titans Go and things like that, because I usually understand and agree with the network's intentions. It's just that they really do a bad job when it comes to the execution phase, and we end up with issues like this one. A spoiler like this creates a rift in the community. Your typical run-of-the-mill spoilers aren't so bad because the episodes they pertain to are not too far away. So once they come, the community at large is for the most part all on the same page. But because of the distance between our current point and that of this spoiler, we're dealing with an entirely different beast. And even if other people who produce Steven Universe content don't carry the same sentiment as I do regarding a loss of potential fun, considering the various video concepts that are pretty much out of the question now, we all took a hypothetical monetary loss. And when this is your occupation, it hurts. So hopefully you can understand that frustration a bit. And furthermore, when this is your job, if the numbers were to, say, plummet and remain there, then you would of course be far less incentivized to continue with the same business model going forwards, essentially turning our heavy focus elsewhere. And with the current role we play in the spread of information during confusing times, or even helping maintain enthusiasm and excitement for the series during the constant hiatuses, as a network you don't want an issue like that to even have the possibility to arise. And I'm certainly not saying this to put any of us on a pedestal, considering I feel the show is fine with or without us, but to me it's undeniable that this would be an unnecessary loss to the series, even if only momentarily, which is one of the reasons I feel this leak came across as so calculated. And so to the people who question why this is such a big deal and why content creators feel so strongly about all of this, by default, because of what we do, Steven Universe is, for a lack of better words, more than just a show to us. Like I said before, I'm certainly one to voice my unfiltered opinions on the show, but that's certainly not to be confused with blind hatred or anything. I genuinely love this show, and I'm only willing to talk about it to this degree because of how much I care. And so in times like these, I can only imagine the feelings of the Crewniverse, considering they are constantly bombarded with the issue of leaks, poor communication, and everything in between. But yeah, I've gone on for long enough in this video. Now in the comments, please don't talk directly about the contents of the spoilers, but more so just contribute to the general discussion. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.